Sonic the Hedgehog, and the Super Nintendo, necessities for gracious living. Seems legit. Veteran survivors of the great console war of the early 90s can recall the tubular time when Mascot Platformers were king. Nintendo of course let us play as everyone's favourite overweight plumber, and Sega offered us the opportunity to play with an RNA seed with an attitude problem. I mean, what else could gamers want? Well, the possibility of playing games featuring both of these video game legends without the need to have purchased two consoles would have been lovely. Thanks to some dubious efforts, gamers in certain parts of the world could pull this very feat off. We have looked at multiple dodgy Mario games from Taiwan here, which can be experienced on the Sega Megadrive. In today's video, we will do the opposite, focusing on a title that allowed us to play as Edgy the Hedgy, but using Nintendo's hardware. So, with all that said, I am Lady Decade, and this is the story of the illegal Sonic the Hedgehog 4 for the Super Nintendo. I've noticed that the bigger my audience grows online, the more unwanted attention I attract from weirdos and other bad people who are up to no good. But, let's be honest, this is not just me. It's all of us. Like my mum, who's an actual nightmare. Don't click that link, Mum! You haven't really won dinner with Steven Seagal! They're trying to steal your passwords! The internet is still pretty much like the Wild West, so we are all targets of unwashed cyber bandits and greasy-haired hackers. For this reason, a decent password manager should be a necessity for everyone's gracious living. To keep my accounts safe, I personally use NordPass as a solution. NordPass offers benefits such as unlimited password storage, multi-factor authentication, saving and autofilling of personal information, and easy access to my passwords from my browser. There are a lot of reasons to use NordPass Password Manager. Get exclusive access to NordPass's best offer here, nordpass.com/LadyDecade, or use code LadyDecade at the checkout to get an additional 1 month for free. Thank you so much to NordPass for sponsoring today's video. Ah yes, bootlegs, a world of dreams and imagination whereby the seemingly impossible becomes possible. We have looked at loads of these here, Street Fighter 2 games for the NES, an 8-bit Super Mario World, and even Donkey Kong Country for the Nintendo Entertainment System. If you can think of it, someone has likely done it. But what is distinct about most of these 90s efforts is that most of them were achieved in Taiwan and mainland China. The game we spotlight today comes from somewhere very different. Peru, to be more specific. But before we delve deeper into that side of things, let's check out what happens when you power this one on. We get a nice little screen with decent music before we are thrust straight into the action. Experienced gamers will instantly notice that the Sonic the Hedgehog sprite and his animations have been lifted directly from one of the Sega Megadrive games, but the feel of the game and how Sonic handles feels very different, including losing the ability to spin jump and instead just being able to perform a straightforward jump. He has gained the ability to kick enemies though, which is something, I guess. Throughout the stages, you rescue Mario from what appears to be bird cages, who distinctively shout out the word Mario. As you can see, like many strange unlicensed games featuring famous mascots on here, something else is clearly going on beneath all this weirdness. So what's the real story here? The dream of a Sonic the Hedgehog game for the Super Nintendo came true in September 1996. This quirky creation was produced by an organisation known as the Twin Eagles Group. The Twin Eagles Group were part of the Peruvian coder scene, getting a footing back in 1989 on the Commodore 64. The team would become quite prolific in the piracy scene, hacking games and reshaping them for the Super Nintendo, Sega Megadrive, Amiga, and eventually the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation. Some of the PlayStation and N64 ones, for example, would be hacks of popular football games where they would replace the teams with ones from South America, proving to be very popular in the region. Who needs ISS 64 when you can play Mundial Ronaldinho Soccer 64 instead? To be fair, Nintendo 64 bootlegs from the 90s are not as prolific as 16 and 8-bit ones, so it's cool to learn about this one here. South America sure does love its football and bootleg video games, so that Ronaldinho game offered the perfect blend. Just a quick thank you to everyone who has subscribed to this channel recently. It's really helped me on my quest for world domination. So if you are yet to do so, subscribe to this channel and show this video to 5 friends before midnight. If you don't, Ugly Sonic will be waiting at the foot of your bed.
The last person who didn't do it died.
So subscribe. As for the Sonic the Hedgehog game for the Super Nintendo, like with many of Twin Eagle's other projects, this one too existed from hacking another game. To bring the blue blur over to the SNES, Twin Eagles would make the clever decision to seek out a game to tamper with that features another small, speedy land animal. They would use the fastest hedgehog in the world to replace the fastest mouse in Mexico, the legendary Speedy Gonzales. This beloved quick-witted sombrero-wearing icon would function as the perfect character switcheroo with Sonic. In Speedy's Super Nintendo base game known as Speedy Gonzales Los Gatos Bandidos, he possesses extreme speed and a short-range kick to defend himself, hence why Sonic can perform such a maneuver in the hacked version of the game. The game is full of fast-moving action with bottomless pits and spikes laced in between to hinder the player's progress. At its heart, Speedy Gonzales by Sunsoft and published by Acclaim was essentially designed to be a Sonic the Hedgehog clone anyway, therefore replacing him with Sonic was all the easier. Whether you play the Speedy version of this game or the Sonic the Hedgehog hack, gameplay-wise it is nothing special and damn right frustrating in places. In fact, Speedy Gonzales is lackluster enough that they wouldn't bother to release the game in Europe altogether, making it all the weirder that we bought a PAL prototype of it a few years ago, marked property of Sunsoft of Japan. ROMs are uniquely fingerprinted to its user. Please return by March 30th, 1995. I assume after missing this date 28 years ago I can keep this now? Twin Eagles Groove would substantially change Speedy Gonzales beyond just changing the playable sprite though, including the imprisoned mice from the original game replaced by those Marios we mentioned earlier in this video. As for the high-pitched Mario yelling, which we also covered, that was recorded by the hackers themselves. A further voice sample can be found in the game whenever Sonic picks up Speed's shoes, with him shouting, "Sonic, Sonic!" The purpose of the Marios in cages is to serve as in-game checkpoints, where gamers respawn after losing a life. It just seems weird that there are loads of them, but that's because Speedy strongly emphasises rescuing mice, functioning just as much as a collectathon as it is about going fast. The original game featured cheese pieces to collect, which have been appropriately replaced with rings. Since this wasn't originally a Sonic game though, some of the non-Sonic-y features remain, such as Sonic having a health meter that goes down as he takes damage, so the rings do not serve their traditional purpose. As for Sonic himself, most animations are pinched from Sonic the Hedgehog 2. However, some animations are instead from Sonic 3. Backgrounds are different colours from in Speedy, and the level order has also changed. Other differences include Sonic having 15 lives as opposed to Speedy's 2, and 9 continues instead of Speedy's 3. Substantial changes to the game's sound were also implemented, and some stages have been removed from the game entirely. This Sonic title also has its fair share of glitches. Some point out online that some of the alternative background colours in stages result from this now disjointed game glitching out, especially when we consider that they go back to normal in boss encounters. The game is also known to crash during the third stage after hitting a switch, but reportedly the same thing can happen to playing Speedy Gonzales using an emulator. Building on this, a running Sonic with a glitchy palette can also appear on screen while scores are being calculated, and further glitches can occur too. Like other Twin Eagles Group games, this Sonic game would circulate around the world, being sold under various different names on pirate cartridges, such as Sonic the Hedgehog 4, as well as Sonic and Knuckles. Interestingly, this isn't even the only Speedy Gonzales game out there that would get turned into a Sonic one, as Speedy Gonzales for the Game Boy would be hacked into Sonic 6. One we could look at in the future if the interest is there. Believe it or not, Twin Eagles Group would also work on another Sonic project for the Super Nintendo, transforming Sparkster into a title often referred to as Sonic 2. One more amusing fact, at the end of Sonic 4, the ending screen shows Sonic loves Nintendo, Mario loves Sega, showing that the bootleggers wanted to bring world peace during the console wars even if Sega and Nintendo didn't. While there was certainly no love lost between these two prolific gaming brands in the 90s, examples like this were the only way we could enjoy Sonic on a Nintendo system. History now shows us that just a few years later, Super Mario and his allies would defeat Sonic's Axis in the console wars, meaning that eventually we got official Sonic the Hedgehog games on Nintendo consoles anyway. Sonic the Hedgehog 4, though, is a permanent reminder of this more turbulent time in the world of platforming mascots, an era where only bootleggers were capable of making our Sega Nintendo dreams come true. If this video sparked joy in your heart, check out this one where I dress as Chun-Li and look at an illegal Street Fighter game for the NES.